Imagine yourself lying in bed right now, letting the weight of the day slowly slip away as your breathing becomes deeper and more peaceful. Tonight, we're stepping into the grim, dangerous, and not so glamorous world of medieval assassins. Those shadowy figures who crept through castle halls and darkened alleys to change history with a blade and a whisper. While Hollywood makes them look cool, the truth is being a medieval assassin seriously sucked. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Let's be clear. No one in medieval times woke up and said, "You know what? I'd like to stab a nobleman in the throat for 12 silver coins and the honor of hiding in a barrel for 3 days." Becoming an assassin wasn't a career path. It was more like a last stop on the life went horribly wrong train. Most medieval assassins weren't mysterious loners trained in mountaintop temples. They were desperate peasants, disgraced soldiers, ex-thieves with decent aim, or people so far off society's radar they could kill a man and still not be noticed in the census. If you were well off, you didn't become an assassin, you hired one. If you had a title, land, or even a goat to your name, you were in management. But if you just escaped debt or prison, had a reputation for solving problems, and could sneak into a tavern without being seen, congratulations. Someone somewhere was about to slide a coin purse across the table and whisper a name. And that name wasn't a fun one. You weren't asked to take out Bob the quiet turnip farmer. It was usually a corrupt baron, a bishop with too much gold, or someone with 12 bodyguards and a moat. The pay, tempting. The job, horrifying. But by the time someone considered it, they had nothing left to lose. No family, no future, and definitely no dental plan. Plus, let's not forget the absolute lack of job perks. No pension, no glory, no evenings off. You couldn't exactly hang up a shingle that said quiet eliminations by appointment. You just had to stay quiet, move fast, and never ever tell anyone what you did for a living, especially not loudly over ale at the inn. Oh yeah, I'm a traveling carpet seller. The stains are there, so yes. Nobody dreamed of being a medieval assassin. They landed there because the world chewed them up and spat them out, wearing a hood and holding a rusty dagger. You weren't the hero. You weren't even the villain. You were the footnote that made everyone nervous and probably didn't live to enjoy the coin. Let's burst the first myth wide open. Medieval assassins didn't train under candlelight in some hidden monastery with wise mentors and inspirational flute music in the background. There was no montage, no teacher, no pep talk. If you learned anything, it was by not dying the first few times you tried. Most assassins weren't trained professionals. They were desperate amateurs with a decent sense of direction and the ability to climb quietly without sneezing. If you had military experience, great. That meant you knew how to hold a knife properly. If not, well, stabbing someone is fairly intuitive, but escaping afterward with both kidneys still intact, that takes skill. Or luck. Usually just luck. There were no manuals, no guild orientation meetings, no safety briefings. You didn't get taught how to spot a body double or where nobles keep their bedroom exits. You figured it out while hanging from a windowsill, wondering if you just crept into the servants' quarters again. Poison, that was trial and error with heavy emphasis on error. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes your target just got mildly dizzy and more suspicious of his soup. Sometimes you drank the wrong cup. There was no medieval poison control hotline, just hope, herbal guesswork, and a strong stomach. Sure, if you were lucky. And I mean lottery lucky. You might have picked up some skills from thieves or mercenaries. Maybe an older assassin showed you how to walk without squeaking on cobblestones. But mentoring wasn't standard. It was rare and short-lived because assassins don't retire. They disappear. Weapons training, forget it. You weren't carrying a broadsword. You had a dagger you stole off a guard. Maybe a garrote, if you were feeling fancy. And whatever else fit under your cloak without jingling. So no, you weren't some shadowy martial arts master. You were a guy with calloused hands, quiet footsteps, and a deeply unhealthy relationship with alleyways. Success didn't come from training. It came from survival. You learned how to kill by doing it quickly, sloppily, then vanishing before anyone could sketch your face and tack it to a church door. In short, your education was brutal, practical, and offered zero graduation ceremonies. Just bruises, blood stains, and the creeping realization that you were very much on your own. Your breathing slows naturally now, becoming deeper and more peaceful. As you think about how different your world is from theirs, you don't have to learn survival through violence. Don't have to figure out deadly skills just to eat tomorrow. Your education came with books and teachers, with safety and second chances. The medieval assassin had none of that. They learned in darkness, made mistakes that cost lives, including sometimes their own, and never had the luxury of trying again. Think about how extraordinary that is. To live in a world where learning doesn't require bloodshed, where mistakes are lessons, not death sentences, where you can lie down at night and know that tomorrow won't demand you become something deadly just to survive. The assassins never knew that peace, never felt that safety. Every skill they learned came with scars. Every lesson was survival or death. There was no middle ground, no practice runs, no forgiveness for getting it wrong, just the cold reality that one mistake meant the end. Settling deeper into comfort now, grateful for every teacher who showed you kindness instead of cruelty, for every lesson that built you up instead of breaking you down, for every moment you were allowed to learn without fear. The assassins would have called that paradise. They would have traded everything for just one day of learning without looking over their shoulder. One day of making mistakes without dying for them. But they never got that day. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep, appreciate the gift of peaceful learning, of growing without violence, of becoming who you are through gentleness instead of desperation. That's not just progress. That's a miracle the medieval world never knew. Your mind grows quieter, your body heavier. As you sink deeper into the safety of your bed, knowing that tomorrow will bring more opportunities to learn, to grow, to become, without violence, without terror, without the cold calculation of survival. Just peaceful growth, just gentle learning, just the extraordinary gift of education without bloodshed. The assassins would have wept at such a world, would have laid down their blades in an instant for the chance to learn without killing, to grow without hiding, to become something other than a shadow. They never got that chance, never knew that peace, never felt that extraordinary gift of learning in safety. So tonight, as your muscles relax completely and your breathing becomes slow and steady, You can rest in gratitude. Gratitude for teachers and books, for second chances and gentle corrections, for a world where mistakes lead to learning instead of death. The medieval assassins lived in a world where every error could be fatal, where there was no room for the learning process, no space for growth through trial and error, just the brutal demand for perfection from the very first attempt. Imagine that pressure, that terror, that impossible standard, and then let it go. Let it drift away like smoke. Because you don't live in that world. You live in this one, where you're safe, where you can learn, where mistakes are just steps on the path to mastery instead of the end of everything. Let's talk about why you became an assassin in the first place. Coin. Cold, heavy, jangly, deliciously spendable coin. The promise of it is what got you into this, but the reality, you got paid in lies. When someone hires an assassin, they don't want a long-term relationship. They want a one-time service. No paperwork, and ideally no witnesses. Including you, they offer you a pouch of silver. Half now. Half when the job is done. That's if they're feeling generous. But here's the thing. When the job is done is code for after we verify you didn't mess it up or make us look bad or leave a trail that leads back to us or survive long enough to tell anyone about it. So you do the job. You sneak through shadows. Risk your life. Maybe kill a baron in his sleep. Not pretty. Not poetic. And when you return, yes, about that payment, the client fled. Terribly sorry. Or worse, they try to kill you. A knife to the gut is cheaper than a bonus. And even when you do get paid, it's never quite enough. Not for the risk. Not for the blood. Not for the 3 days you spent hiding in a haystack with fleas and moral regret. You get a handful of coins, a kurt nod, and a reminder you were never here. Also, fun fact, some contracts were fake, political traps. You'd be told to assassinate someone dangerous, only to find out it was a decoy with guards waiting. Congratulations. You just walked into a sting operation with your name already carved on the gallows. And even when the deal was real, you couldn't exactly go to court and file a complaint. Your Honour, I'd like to sue Lord Edmund for breach of assassin contract. The only court you'd see was the one where you were the exhibit. So you learned to take what you could, demand payment up front, and trust absolutely no one. Not even the greasy little scribe who swore this job would change your life. He did, mostly by shortening it. Being an assassin meant living on broken promises and vanishing before they broke you. So you've taken the job. You've been lied to about the pay. You're probably going to die. Now let's talk gear. Forget the fantasy novels and sneaky video games. There were no retractable wrist blades, smoke bombs, enchanted daggers, or crossbows that folded neatly into your boot. Your toolkit consisted of whatever you could steal, sharpen, or hide beneath a tattered cloak without clanking. If you were lucky, and I mean found a gold coin in a dead man's shoe, lucky, you had a good dagger, not ornate, not curved like a dragon's tooth, just sharp, hopefully rust-free, and ideally one that didn't smell like the last guy you stabbed with it. Poison. It existed. Well, sure, but it wasn't as glamorous as a slow drip into a wine goblet. Most medieval poisons were unpredictable, made from plants, minerals, or toad guts. Some worked instantly, some took hours, some made your victim vomit for 2 days and then recover. Angrier, and now very suspicious of stew. Rope, occasionally useful. You could strangle, climb, or tie something up with one. But you'd better know how to use it fast, because nothing kills the mood like trying to wrestle someone while muttering. Wait, which knot goes under again, vows effective? Yes, if you had one, knew how to shoot it, and weren't trying to smuggle it through a palace disguised as a flower arranger. Most assassinations were up close and personal. No time for elegant marksmanship. Just quick, quiet, and hopefully not messy enough to slip in. And you didn't get backups. If your blade bent, broke, or fell down a well, time to improvise. Slate roof tile, maybe? Rusty nail, worth a shot. Shoe buckle with intent, desperate times. You carried your tools hidden in hems, buets, or inside hollowed-out bread if needed. And you kept them close, not for safety, but because in this line of work, your weapon was your best friend, your boss, and your only retirement plan. There were no upgrades, no tinkering with gear between missions. You didn't polish your kit. You prayed it didn't betray you mid-strike, because in the end, it wasn't the weapon that did the killing. It was you, alone, poorly equipped, and expected to perform miracles with a spoon and a prayer. Your muscles continue to relax now, sinking deeper into the comfort of your bed. As you think about tools, about how you use them safely, with training and care. The assassin's tools were desperate improvisations, weapons stolen or scavenged. Nothing reliable, nothing safe. Every piece of equipment was a gamble. Would the blade hold? Would the rope snap? Would the poison work or backfire? They never knew. Never had the luxury of testing. Never had backup plans or safety nets. Think about the tools you use every day, made by professionals, designed for safety, built to last. Even the simplest knife in your kitchen is better made than anything a medieval assassin ever held. Your scissors work smoothly. Your tools don't threaten your life just by existing. That's progress, hidden in plain sight. That's safety you don't even notice anymore. The assassins would have wept at the sight of a hardware store, at tools that worked. That didn't rust overnight. That came with instructions instead of curses. They would have called it sorcery. But it's not magic. It's centuries of craftspeople refusing to accept that tools should fail. That equipment should be unreliable. The people should risk their lives just trying to use basic implements. Settling deeper into peaceful rest now, grateful for every well-made thing around you, for every tool that works as promised, for every piece of equipment that's been tested and refined. The assassins had none of that. Just broken promises wrapped in rusty metal, just hopes pinned on tools that could kill them as easily as their targets. And tonight, you don't have to worry about any of that. Don't have to test your equipment in life or death situations. Don't have to improvise with whatever broken thing you can find. You can just rest, peacefully, completely, with nothing sharp or dangerous required. Think about that simple freedom. The freedom to not need weapons, to not carry deadly tools hidden in your clothing, to move through the world without concealed blades and poison vials. The assassins never had one moment without their tools, never walked anywhere unarmed, never knew the lightness of being harmless, of being safe enough to be gentle. Every moment required readiness for violence. Every interaction carried the possibility of sudden combat. Every step through the world was calculated for threat and opportunity. That's exhausting. That's soul-crushing. That's living every second as a predator among predators. Never relaxing. Never softening. Never just being human without the weight of deadly purpose. Your breathing becomes even slower now, even deeper, as you appreciate the extraordinary gift of not needing to be dangerous, of being safe enough to be kind, gentle enough to be vulnerable, unarmed enough to be truly at peace. The assassins would have treasured 1 hour of that peace, 1 moment of moving through the world without weapons, without calculation, without the constant readiness for violence. But they never got that moment, never knew that lightness, never felt that peace. They carried their tools always, slept with blades under pillows, woke reaching for weapons. Every moment of every day defined by the tools of violence they couldn't afford to be without. Imagine never being able to set down your defenses, never being able to move through the world without being ready to kill at any moment, never having the simple freedom of being unarmed and unafraid. That's not living. That's surviving in a constant state of readiness, of tension, of threat, settling into the deepest peace now, into the gift of being able to be soft, to be gentle, to be unarmed and unafraid. The assassins never knew this feeling, never felt this safety, never experienced this simple, extraordinary freedom to not need weapons, to not need violence, to not need the constant readiness for combat. Just peace, just softness, just the beautiful, ordinary miracle of being harmless and safe. That's everything they never had. And everything you have, every single moment of every single day, the freedom to be gentle, to be soft, to be at peace, without weapons, without calculation, without the burden of constant readiness for violence. Just rest, deep, peaceful, unarmed rest. Assassins weren't hired to take out random drunks in back alleys. No one paid you to stab Jeff the sleepy candle maker. Your targets were important. Noble. Bishops, military officers, sometimes even royalty. And those people, they were very hard to kill. First, there were the guards, not 1 or 2, dozens, armored, and well-fed. Some guarded the front, some the back, some just stood there looking intimidating, daring you to blink wrong. You'd spend days memorizing patrol patterns, dear creaks, and exactly how many stairs it took before the knight with asthma needed a breather. Second, there were walls. Castles didn't have front porches. They had gatehouses, murder holes, and moats full of things that bite. If you didn't fall into the water, you still had to worry about arrow slits and boiling oil. Yes, boiling oil. Your job description included may get flambéed for peaking. The third, there were the servants and staff, the cooks, scribes, and stable boys. One wrong look from you and they'd be whispering to the guard captain faster than you could say, "I'm just the herbalist." Assassins weren't just fighting swords. They were fighting gossip, and medieval gossip travels at light speed if it means someone gets to keep their head. And finally, your actual target, paranoid, rightfully so. These people were surrounded by backstabbers, relatives with claims to their titles, and 36 people pretending to like them. They didn't eat without a tester. They didn't sleep without 3 locks on the door. Some even slept in decoy beds or rotated rooms like a deadly version of musical chairs. And don't get excited if you hear they're attending a feast. Yes, they'll be drunk, but so will you. And you'll still have to get past the royal guards. 3 dogs, a very alert jester, and 50 witnesses holding tankards. Even getting close to your target could take weeks. Posing as a servant, bribing a chambermaid, hiding in barrels, And when the moment finally came, you had one shot, one precise, perfect, non-squeaky, non-bloody, ghost vanish in the night moment. Or you'd become the next public deterrent, swinging from the castle gate with a sign that read, "Nice try." Your breathing becomes slower and more rhythmic now, as you think about access, about how you can go almost anywhere, walk into buildings, enter spaces, move freely. The assassin had none of that freedom. Every door was a challenge, every hallway a gauntlet. Every step closer to their target meant passing through layers of security designed specifically to catch people like them. Think about how extraordinary your freedom is, how you can enter places without fear, move through the world without constantly calculating escape routes, visit locations without wondering which guard will recognize you. The assassins lived in a world of closed doors and suspicious eyes, where belonging anywhere meant creating an elaborate lie, where one wrong word could end everything. They couldn't just exist in space without justification. Every moment required a story, an excuse, a reason why they had any right to breathe the same air as nobles. That's exhausting. That's soul-crushing. That's living every moment as a performance, where one misline means death. And you don't have to do any of that tonight. Don't have to justify your existence. Don't have to perform to survive. Don't have to calculate every movement and word. You can just be, just exist, just rest, without guards or gates or questions, settling deeper into that freedom now. That's simple, extraordinary freedom to be yourself in your own space, without performance or pretense, without fear or calculation. The assassins never knew that feeling, never felt the peace of just existing without threat. Every moment was performance. Every breath required justification. But you can just breathe, just be, just drift into peaceful sleep. No guards, no gates, no question, just rest. Deep, peaceful, unquestioned rest. Think about walking into any building in your city, a library, a cafe, a shop. You don't need permission, don't need an elaborate backstory, don't need to bribe anyone or create a false identity. You just walk in. That simple act would have been impossible for the assassin. Every building was a fortress, every entry a negotiation with danger, every moment inside enemy territory where discovery meant death. They couldn't browse shops, couldn't linger in public spaces, couldn't enjoy the simple pleasure of being somewhere without purpose or pretense. Every location was either a target or a threat. Every building, either their destination or their danger. There was no neutral ground, no safe space, no place where they could just exist without calculation. Your muscles relax even deeper now as you appreciate the gift of neutral spaces, of places that don't care who you are or why you're there, of buildings that welcome instead of threaten, of a world where most doors open instead of close. The assassins moved through a world of locked doors and hostile spaces, where every threshold was a challenge, where every room held potential death, where belonging anywhere was a carefully constructed lie that could shatter any moment. Imagine the exhaustion of that, of never being welcome, never being safe, never being able to just exist in space without elaborate justification, of treating every room as enemy territory, every building as a battlefield, every moment indoors as borrowed time before discovery. That's not living. That's surviving in a hostile world where even the architecture wants you dead. Settling into grateful rest now, in a space that welcomes you, in a building that's yours, in a room that doesn't demand explanation or justification, just simple, peaceful belonging. The assassins would have wept at such a gift, would have treasured one night in a room that was truly theirs, one moment of being somewhere without fear, one breath in a space that didn't threaten. But they never got that moment, never knew that peace, never felt that simple, extraordinary gift of belonging somewhere, of being welcome, of being home. Think about your bedroom, your safe space, the place where you can truly relax and be yourself, where no one questions your presence, where you don't have to maintain any pretense or performance, where you can just exist, just be, just rest. The assassins never had such a place. Every space was temporary, every room potentially hostile, every moment of rest interrupted by the need for vigilance. They couldn't truly relax anywhere, couldn't let their guard down, couldn't feel the deep safety of being somewhere that was genuinely, completely theirs. Your breathing is so slow now, so deep and peaceful, as you rest in your safe space, in your room, in your home, where you belong, where you're welcome, where you can finally, completely relax. The assassins never knew this feeling, never felt this deep safety, never experienced this profound peace of being somewhere that was truly, completely theirs. So tonight, as you drift into the deepest rest, in your safe space, in your home, appreciate that extraordinary gift, that simple, profound miracle of having a place that's yours, where you belong, where you're safe, where you can rest. Completely, finally, home. Let's be honest. When you picture a medieval assassin, you probably imagine sleek black robes, leather braces, maybe a mysterious hood billowing in the moonlight. Reality, you looked like a sick goat herder with something to hide. Disguises in the Middle Ages weren't exactly high fashion. You didn't have custom-tailored cloaks or retractable armor. You had whatever you could scavenge. Peasant rags, a monk's robe, 2 sizes too big, or the remains of a guard uniform that definitely still smelled like its previous owner. The goal was to blend in, but blending in meant looking like everyone else who hadn't bathed in 2 weeks, limped from old injuries, and had a nervous twitch from malnutrition. You didn't look suspicious because of your cloak. You looked suspicious because you kept adjusting your belt to hide a dagger wrapped in cheesecloth. And forget masks. There were no Guy Fawkes options. Most face coverings just made you look like a leper, which was great for avoiding conversation but terrible for entering parties. If anyone asked who you were, you had to think fast. I'm Brother Tobias. I take care of silent prayer and rooftop maintenance. Even assuming you made it past the guards, noble households weren't full of idiots. Servants noticed unfamiliar faces, especially ones that fumbled chamber pots and couldn't name the cook's cat. You were always one I've never seen you before, away from being clubbed with a candlestick. And if your disguise did work, congratulations. You now had to stay in character for hours while pretending not to notice all the very stab-worthy people wandering by. Also, wigs. They didn't exist. If you needed to look older or younger, you were stuck smearing dirt on your face, squinting, and hoping no one got close enough to notice that your beard was glued on with honey. The truth was, your disguise didn't protect you. It gave you maybe 5 minutes of confusion. After that, you had to be gone, invisible, or very, very convincing. And if anyone saw through it, well, let's just say No one wants to be the assassin caught in the bishop's laundry room wearing a nun's habit and holding a sword. Especially not on a feast day. Your muscles relax even deeper now as you think about identity, about how you can be yourself. Don't have to pretend. Don't have to wear masks or create elaborate fictions about who you are. The assassin lived in constant disguise, not just clothing but personality. Accent, history, everything about them was a lie. A necessary lie, but a lie that slowly erased who they really were. Think about the gift of authenticity, of being known, of having people who recognize your face and voice and welcome you, not because you've convinced them of a fiction, but because they know you, really know you. The assassins never had that. Every relationship was transactional, every conversation a performance. Every moment with another person was really a moment alone, wearing someone else's face, speaking someone else's words, being anyone except themselves. That's a special kind of loneliness, the kind that hollows you out from the inside, the kind that makes you forget what's real and what's performance, until eventually you're not sure which face is actually yours, which voice is authentic, which version of you still exists underneath all the masks, settling into peaceful authenticity now, into the simple gift of being yourself, of not having to perform or pretend, of existing exactly as you are, without masks or disguises or elaborate fictions, just you, real and whole and known. The assassins would have traded everything for one moment of that truth. One conversation without calculation. One relationship without lies. One moment of being seen as themselves. But they never got that moment. So tonight, as you rest in your own skin, in your own truth, in your own authentic existence, appreciate how extraordinary that is. How rare it was in human history. How impossible it seemed to the medieval assassin to just be yourself, to be known, to be real. That's not a small thing. That's everything. Think about introducing yourself to someone. You say your real name, share your actual history, tell the truth about your life. That simple act would have been suicide for the assassin. Every introduction was a fabrication, every name a lie, every history a carefully constructed fiction. They couldn't tell anyone who they really were, where they actually came from, what they truly did. Every conversation required remembering which lies they'd told to which people, which identity they were wearing, which backstory they'd created. One slip, one moment of forgetting which mask they wore, and everything could unravel. Your breathing grows even deeper now, even more peaceful, as you appreciate the extraordinary freedom of honesty, of not having to remember lies, of not maintaining multiple false identities, of being able to tell the truth without dying for it. The assassins lived in a labyrinth of lies, every word calculated, every story rehearsed, every identity maintained with exhausting precision. Because one mistake, one contradiction, one moment where the mask slipped meant exposure, and exposure meant death. Imagine the mental burden of that, of maintaining multiple false identities, of never being able to relax into truth, of every conversation being a test of your memory and your acting ability. That's not living. That's performing without end, without rest, without the relief of ever being genuinely yourself. Settling deeper into the gift of truth now, of being able to be honest, to be yourself, to be known truly and completely, without performance or pretense, without the exhausting maintenance of elaborate fictions, just simple, peaceful authenticity. The assassins would have called that the greatest luxury, would have traded all their coins for one day of being themselves. One conversation without lies, one relationship based on truth. But they never got that day, never knew the peace, never felt the relief of lowering all the masks and just being human, real and flawed and honest and known. So tonight, as you drift towards sleep in your own authentic existence, appreciate that extraordinary gift, that simple, profound freedom to be yourself, to be known, to be real. That's everything the medieval assassin never had. And everything you've always been allowed to be. Think about the people who know you, really know you, who've seen you at your best and your worst, who know your flaws and love you anyway. That kind of relationship would have been impossible for the assassin. They couldn't let anyone see their flaws, couldn't show weakness or vulnerability, couldn't be known deeply, because being known meant being exposed. And being exposed meant death. Your muscles are completely relaxed now. You're breathing slow and steady as you rest in the profound safety of being known, of having relationships that go deep, of being loved for who you actually are, not for the mask you wear, not for the performance you give, but for your real, authentic, flawed, beautiful self. The assassins never knew that love, never felt that acceptance, never experienced that profound relief of being seen completely and loved anyway. So tonight, as you drift into the deepest sleep, surrounded by the warmth of people who know you, who see you, who love the real you, rest in that extraordinary gift, that simple, profound miracle of being yourself, of being known, of being loved, not despite your flaws, but including them. That's everything. That's the whole point. That's what makes life worth living. And it's something the medieval assassin never, ever had. In medieval times, if you were an assassin, you didn't have a team. You didn't have a sidekick with a crossbow, a clever alchemist in a secret lair, or a handler who gave you coded scrolls and warm encouragement. You had you, a rusty dagger, and crippling trust issues. There were no guilds, at least not ones you could actually count on. And if there were whispers of a brotherhood of assassins, it was mostly tavern talk fueled by mead and boredom. You were more likely to meet a ghost than another professional killer who wanted to network. Why the isolation? Because in your business, the fewer people who knew you existed, the longer you lived. Every contact was a risk. Every loose tongue a potential noose. Even your client might not know your real name. And if they did, you were already planning your exit. Companionship laughable. Friends asked questions. Lovers noticed bruises, bloodstains, and why you always slept with a blade under the pillow. You couldn't settle down. You couldn't afford to. One mistake, one person recognizing you in a market, and your whole life turned into a sprint for the nearest sewer grate. Even fellow criminals kept their distance. Thieves and smugglers were sociable. You were that guy who makes people disappear. They feared you, or worse, saw you as a walking liability. No one wanted to share stew with someone whose occupation could attract a mob with torches. Don't expect sympathy. You couldn't tell anyone how hard it was to sleep after silently strangling a corrupt bishop. If you talked about your job, people assumed you were either lying or dangerous. And they weren't wrong, so you kept your secrets, your scars, and your weapons to yourself. At Inns, You sat in the darkest corner, back to the wall, eyes always scanning the door. You never drank too much. You never stayed more than a night. You didn't say your name unless someone paid you first. And even then, it probably wasn't your real one. Being a medieval assassin meant perfecting the art of vanishing, not just in a crowd, but from every life you never got to have. Your breathing continues. It's slow, peaceful rhythm as you think about connection, about how you're not alone, how you can reach out and find people, build relationships, create bonds that don't require lies or distance. The assassin lived in enforced isolation, not by choice but by necessity. Every connection threatened survival. Every relationship was a potential betrayal, so they stayed alone, always moving, always watching, always separate from the warmth of human connection. Think about your relationships, the people you can call, the friends who know you, the family who recognizes your voice. Those connections aren't just nice, they're lifelines. They're the threads that keep us tethered to humanity. The assassins had to cut every thread, had to drift free and alone, had to become ghosts among the living. Imagine the weight of that loneliness, of walking through crowded markets and feeling completely alone, of hearing laughter and knowing you can never join it, of seeing families and remembering that belonging anywhere means endangering everyone. That's not just isolation. That's a kind of death, dying slowly while still breathing, fading from the world while still walking through it, settling deeper into gratitude now for every connection you have, every person who knows your name, every relationship that doesn't require deception or distance. The assassins would have called that wealth beyond measure, would have traded all their coins for one honest conversation, one genuine friendship, one moment of belonging, but they never got that moment. So tonight, surrounded by the invisible threads of your connections, knowing that people know you and care for you, you can rest in that warmth, that safety, that fundamental human need for connection, fulfilled in ways the medieval assassin could only dream of. Think about the last time someone called your name with affection, the last time you laughed with friends, the last time you felt truly seen and known by another person. Those moments would have been impossible for the assassin. Every use of their name was suspicious. Every laugh potentially dangerous. Every moment of being truly seen a threat to survival. They couldn't have friends who knew them, couldn't build relationships based on honesty, couldn't create bonds that deepened over time through shared truth. Every connection was shallow by necessity, every relationship temporary by design, every bond fragile because it was built on lies. Your muscles sink deeper into relaxation now, as you appreciate the depth of your connections, the honesty of your relationships, the way people know you not just superficially but deeply, truly, completely. The assassins could never be known that way, could never share their true thoughts or feelings or fears, could never be vulnerable or honest or real with another person, because vulnerability meant death, honesty meant exposure, reality meant the end. So they stayed hidden, even in crowds, even in conversation, even in moments that looked like connection but were really just performance, just calculation, just survival disguised as relationship. Imagine never being able to tell anyone about your day, your thoughts, your fears, your hopes, every conversation staying on the surface, every interaction remaining calculated, every moment with others being fundamentally alone. That's not just loneliness. That's a kind of solitary confinement while walking free, imprisoned in isolation even when surrounded by people, settling into peaceful connection now, into the gift of being known, of having relationships that go deep, of being able to share yourself honestly and completely without fear of exposure or betrayal, without calculating every word, without maintaining distance for survival. The assassins would have treasured 1 hour of that connection, one conversation without masks, one moment of being truly seen and known and accepted. But they never got that hour, never knew that warmth, never felt the profound relief of being genuinely known by another human being. So tonight, as you rest in the warmth of your connection, in the safety of being known, in the comfort of relationships built on truth, appreciate that extraordinary gift, that fundamental human need fulfilled, that simple, profound miracle of not being alone. Think about sharing a meal with people you love, laughing together, telling stories, being yourself without fear or calculation. That simple joy would have been impossible for the assassin. Every meal was eaten, alone or in disguise. Every story a carefully constructed lie. Every moment of apparent connection really just another performance. They couldn't relax into genuine human warmth, couldn't let their guard down enough to truly connect, couldn't experience the simple joy of being with people who know you and like you anyway. Your breathing is so slow now, so deep and peaceful. As you rest in the warmth of genuine human connection, of relationships built on truth instead of lies, of bonds that deepen instead of threaten, the assassins never knew this warmth, never felt this safety, never experienced this fundamental human joy of being known, of being connected, of being part of something larger than themselves. So tonight, as you drift into peaceful sleep, surrounded by the invisible web of your relationships, knowing that you're not alone, that you're known, that you're connected, rest in that extraordinary gift, that simple, profound miracle of being part of the human family, of having people who know you and care for you, of not being alone. The assassins lived and died alone, cut off from human warmth, separated from genuine connection, imprisoned in isolation even as they walked among crowds. But you have what they never did: connection, community, the simple, extraordinary gift of not being alone. Let's say you took the job, you planned your route, you bribed the right doorman, you disguised yourself as a very convincing chimney sweep, and then you froze. Maybe the target turned around unexpectedly. Maybe they were with their child. Maybe you got the shakes at the worst possible moment and your knife hand trembled like a terrified squirrel. Guess what? You're now dead. Because failure for a medieval assassin wasn't a slap on the wrist or a bad performance review. It was a public, painful, and wildly theatrical death, often involving ropes, fire, wheels, or sharp iron devices with names like the Bone Cracker's Delight. Missing the kill meant blowing the whole operation. Your target lived and immediately told everyone that someone tried to murder them. Suddenly you weren't a shadow. You were a wanted man with a detailed description and probably a crude sketch tacked to every tavern wall within 30 miles. And those guards you once snuck past, now they're motivated. Sometimes it wasn't even your target you had to worry about. It was your client. If you failed, you were no longer an asset. You were a liability, someone who could be tortured, interrogated, or worse, talk. The very people who paid you would be the first to put out a second contract on you. And there were no second chances. No, sorry. The blade slipped. I'll try again tomorrow. You had one shot, one moment in time. And if you blew it, the best you could hope for was to die quickly before anyone found out who hired you. Failure also meant shame. The silent, humiliating kind. You didn't just fail to kill, you failed to be invisible, to be perfect. And for assassins, perfection was survival. Anything less might as well paint a target on your back and start practicing your final word speech. It didn't matter how many jobs you'd done before. No one cared that you succeeded 12 times. Because in this profession, you're only as good as your last kill. And if your last kill didn't happen, you'd better start running. Your muscles sink deeper into relaxation now. As you think about failure, about how you're allowed to fail, how mistakes don't mean death, how trying again is possible. The assassin got one chance, one perfect moment, one opportunity to succeed or die. There was no learning curve, no practice runs, no gentle correction or constructive feedback, just success or death. Think about every time you failed and survived, every mistake that taught you something, every error that made you better instead of ending you. That's extraordinary. That's a luxury the assassin never knew. They couldn't afford mistakes, couldn't learn through failure, couldn't grow by trying and missing. One error erased everything, made all previous successes meaningless, turned their entire existence into a manhunt. Imagine living with that pressure, where perfection isn't a goal but a requirement, where anything less than flawless execution means torture and death, where you can't be human, can't slip or stumble or hesitate, must be perfect or perish. That's not living. That's existing in a state of constant terror, always one small mistake away from the end. Settling into peaceful imperfection now, into the gift of being allowed to be human, to make mistakes without dying for them, to fail and try again, to learn through error instead of ending with it. The assassins never knew that grace, never felt that safety, never experienced the freedom of imperfection. So tonight, as you drift into rest, imperfect and human and alive, appreciate that extraordinary gift, the gift the medieval assassin would have treasured above all gold, the simple freedom to fail. And live, think about learning to ride a bike, to cook, to play an instrument. Every one of those skills required failure, required mistakes, required trying and missing and trying again. The assassin couldn't learn that way, couldn't practice, couldn't make beginner mistakes. Their first attempt had to be perfect. Their first try had to succeed because there was no second chance, no opportunity to learn from error, no grace for imperfection, just immediate, brutal consequences for any failure. Your breathing becomes even slower now, even deeper and more peaceful, as you appreciate the extraordinary gift of growth through failure, of being allowed to be imperfect, of having the space and safety to make mistakes and learn from them. The assassins would have wept at such a world, would have traded everything for the opportunity to fail safely, to make mistakes without dying, to learn through error instead of being erased by it. But they never got that opportunity, never knew that safety, never felt that grace. Every action had to be perfect, every movement flawless, every decision exactly right, because anything less meant not just failure but death, settling deeper into grateful rest now, into the knowledge that tomorrow will bring more opportunities, more chances, more moments to try and fail and try again, without death, without torture, without the end, just patient, peaceful opportunities for growth, for learning, for becoming better through the grace of imperfection. The assassins never knew that peace, never felt that safety, never experienced that fundamental human gift of being allowed to be imperfect, to be human, to fail and live and grow. So tonight, as you rest in your beautiful, flawed humanity, in your freedom to make mistakes, in your safety to fail and try again, appreciate that extraordinary miracle, that simple, profound gift, the freedom to be imperfect, to be human, to be alive despite all your failures. That's everything the medieval assassin never had, and everything you've always been allowed to be. Imperfect, growing, alive. Think about a time you made a big mistake. Maybe at work, maybe in a relationship, maybe just in daily life. That mistake probably hurt, probably embarrassed you, probably caused problems, but it didn't kill you, didn't end your life, didn't result in torture or public execution. You got to learn from it, got to grow, got to become better because of it. The assassin never got that chance. One mistake and everything ended. No learning, no growth, no opportunity to become better. Just death. Swift and brutal and final. Your muscles are completely relaxed now. Your breathing slow and rhythmic. As you rest in the profound safety of being allowed to be imperfect, of living in a world where mistakes are opportunities instead of endings, where failure leads to growth instead of death. The assassins would have called that the greatest gift imaginable. Would have traded all their skills and all their successes for just one chance to fail safely, to make a mistake and live to learn from it. But they never got that chance, never knew that safety, never felt that extraordinary grace. So tonight, as you drift into the deepest sleep, imperfect and flawed and beautifully human, rest in the knowledge that your mistakes don't define you, don't end you, don't erase you. They're just part of your journey, part of your growth, part of your beautiful, messy, perfectly imperfect human life. That's everything. That's the gift. That's what the medieval assassin never had. And what you have every single day, the freedom to be imperfect, to fail, to grow, to live. So you did it. The plan worked. The dagger struck true. No screams, no guards, just a clean drop to the floor and a very important person who now wasn't. Congratulations. Now run for your life. Because being a successful assassin in medieval times didn't mean sipping wine on a rooftop while the city burns behind you. It meant fleeing through back alleys with someone's blood on your boots and a dog already sniffing your trail. There was no victory lap, no post-job drink with colleagues, no casual debrief with your client. You didn't even get a moment to admire your work. The moment your blade struck, your new job became escaping everyone who now wants to murder you in increasingly creative ways. Guards coming, doors locked, horses tied up on the other side of town. You're probably bleeding. You had to plan your exit before the kill. Routes, disguises, fallback safe houses, maybe a boatman who owed you a favor, or at least didn't ask questions, because the city would go on lockdown within minutes. No one wanted a scandal, and lockdown meant closed gates, armed checkpoints, and a dozen angry men with swords who all just received your rough sketch and the phrase, maybe armed and extremely stabby. And let's talk about the client, assuming they actually planned to pay you. They weren't going to meet you at a cozy tavern with a smile and a thank you card. They'd probably vanish too, because an assassin who just completed a job is the most dangerous person alive. You knew too much. You'd proven you could get into places others couldn't. So even when you succeeded, You walked away with coin in one hand and a giant target on your back. And what did you win? A week of sleeping in lofts, bribing ferry captains, shaving your beard in the dark, and pretending your name was Brother Lucian as you tried to blend in with monks heading east. Because success didn't mean survival. It meant starting the whole game over in a new city under a new name, with even more people looking for you this time. So yes, you made the kill. Now run like hell. Your breathing becomes even slower now, even more peaceful. As you think about consequences, about how your actions don't usually mean running for your life, don't require complete identity changes, don't force you to abandon everything and flee. The assassin's success was immediately followed by terror, by flight, by the knowledge that completing the job was just the beginning of a new nightmare. They couldn't celebrate, couldn't rest, couldn't even acknowledge their own success, because success made them more hunted, not less. Think about your achievements, how you can enjoy them, share them, build on them, how success leads to more opportunities, not more danger. How doing well doesn't mean you have to disappear and reinvent yourself in a distant city. That's normal to you. But it would have been paradise to the assassin, to succeed and stay, to accomplish something and be recognized, to build a reputation without it becoming a death sentence. They got none of that. Every success made them more vulnerable. Every completed job added to the list of people who wanted them dead, made them more valuable as a target and less safe in the world, settling into grateful rest now, into the knowledge that you can succeed without fleeing, can accomplish things without disappearing, can build a life instead of constantly abandoning it. The assassins succeeded only to run, only to hide, only to become someone else, somewhere else, and start the cycle again, never building, never staying, never home, just an endless series of escapes. Each success purchasing only temporary safety and another round of terror. Tonight you don't have to run, don't have to hide, don't have to reinvent yourself. You can just be, just rest, just stay, safe in your success, comfortable in your accomplishments, home in your own life. Think about what it means to build something over time. A career, a reputation, a body of work. Each success adding to the last. Each accomplishment building on previous ones. Creating something larger and more meaningful than any single achievement. The assassin could never do that. Could never build. Could never create something lasting. Every success was isolated, disconnected from what came before and what might come after, because success meant fleeing, meant abandoning that identity and starting over, meant never being able to build on previous accomplishments or create something cumulative and meaningful. Your muscles relax completely now as you appreciate the gift of continuity, of being able to build over time, of having successes that compound and create something larger than themselves. The assassins succeeded in isolated moments, then fled, then started over with nothing, no reputation to build on, no previous successes to reference, no body of work that grew and deepened and became something meaningful. Just isolated victories followed by flight and erasure. Imagine achieving something significant and immediately having to pretend it never happened, to abandon the identity that accomplished it, to start over as someone who has done nothing. That's not just frustrating, that's existentially devastating. It means nothing you accomplish can ever become part of who you are, can never be built upon, can never contribute to something larger. Just isolated moments of success followed by erasure and restart, settling deeper into peaceful continuity now, into the gift of being able to build over time, to have an identity that grows and deepens with each success, to create something meaningful that compounds and becomes more than the sum of its parts. The assassins never knew that feeling, never experienced that growth, never felt the satisfaction of building something lasting. Just success followed by flight, followed by erasure, followed by starting over. Again and again, never building, never growing, never creating anything that lasted beyond the moment. So tonight, as you rest in the continuity of your life, in your ability to build and grow and create meaning over time, appreciate that extraordinary gift, that simple, profound ability to have successes that compound, that creates something larger, that become part of who you are. Instead of forcing you to flee and forget, the assassins would have treasured that above all else, would have traded every isolated success for one life that built and grew and became something meaningful over time. Think about your resume, your portfolio, your history of accomplishments, each one building on the last, each one adding to your story, each one making you more of who you are. The assassin could never have that, could never point to their achievements, could never build a narrative of growth and accomplishment, because every success had to be hidden, every achievement erased, every victory followed by flight and reinvention. Your breathing is so slow now, so deep and peaceful, as you rest in the continuity of your identity, in the accumulation of your achievements, in the story of your life that grows and deepens with each passing year. The assassins had no such story, no such continuity, no such accumulation, just isolated moments of success, followed by flight, followed by erasure, followed by starting over as someone new, someone with no history, no achievements, no story, settling into the deepest gratitude now for the gift of continuity, for the ability to be someone who grows over time, who builds on past successes, who creates a life that's more than just disconnected moments. The assassins would have wept at such a gift, would have traded everything for the chance to be someone, to have a story, to build something that lasted. But they never got that chance, never knew that joy, never felt that profound satisfaction of looking back on a life well lived, a life that built and grew and became something meaningful. So you survived. You got the job done. You even managed to get paid. A miracle in itself. Now, all you have to do is lay low, keep your head down, and trust that your client will honor the deal and protect your identity. Right, wrong. Because in the world of medieval assassination, there was one rule, even more sacred than don't get caught. Never trust anyone, especially the person paying you. Your client, be they a noble, a merchant, or a bishop with ambition and very loose morals, didn't hire you out of respect. They hired you because they needed something awful done and you were the sharpest tool in the shadows. Once the job was complete, you became a liability. You knew too much. You knew who wanted who dead, when, why, and possibly how much they were willing to pay for it. That made you dangerous, not just to their enemies, but to them. So what did they do? They ghosted you. They denied they ever met you. Or worse, they sent someone else after you to clean up, to tie off the contract with something sharper than ink. There were even cases where clients double booked, hiring one assassin to do the job and another to kill the first one immediately after. No refunds, just reduced risk. And if you dared try to blackmail a client, threaten to expose them, that was bold. And also your final mistake, because powerful people in the Middle Ages didn't negotiate with assassins. They crushed them, If your client had a shred of honor, a rare species indeed, you might get paid and left alone. But even then, you'd still have to assume they were watching you from a distance, with someone already sharpening steel and memorizing your walk. You were the secret that couldn't talk, the shadow that couldn't stay. Even success wasn't enough to earn trust, because in their eyes, if you killed once, you could kill again. And no one, not even the person who hired you, wanted to be next. Your breathing is so slow now, so peaceful and deep as you drift toward the end of this journey. The assassin's story was one of complete distrust, of relationships built on fear, of connections that were really just calculations. They couldn't trust anyone, not employers, not fellow criminals, not even themselves. Think about the people you trust, the ones you can rely on, the relationships built on honesty instead of fear, on mutual support instead of mutual threat. That's civilization. That's progress. That's humanity remembering how to be human instead of predator. The assassins lived in a world where trust was suicide, where every relationship was a potential betrayal, where even success meant becoming more of a target. They couldn't rest, couldn't trust, couldn't ever truly be safe, because safety requires trust. And trust was the one luxury they could never afford. Let's say somehow you beat the odds. You survived the kills, the lies, the poisonings, the betrayals. You outlived your enemies, your employers, and probably your own sense of morality. Now what? You retire? Absolutely not. Because in medieval times, assassins didn't get retirement plans. There were no farewell banquets, no quiet cottages by the sea, no pensions paid in gold coins and grateful whispers. You didn't fade into a peaceful life. You vanished, or you died, often both. The problem was simple. You were never safe. Even if you walked away from the job, your past didn't. You had too many secrets in your head, too many names in your memory, too much blood on your hands. People didn't want you retired. They wanted you forgotten, which usually meant buried. And even if no one came after you, and that's a big if, you had to live with constant fear that someone might, that a new assassin, young and eager to prove himself, had just received a contract for a shadowy figure who used to be someone dangerous. So you changed your name again. You moved to a village where no one asked questions. You faked a limp, sold herbs, pretended you once worked as a guard. But even then, you didn't sleep well. You avoided crowds. You always sat facing the door. You kept your dagger under the floorboard next to the pouch of coins you never touched because it still smelled like the man you earned it from. And you couldn't trust yourself either. Years of silent killings and quick escapes did something to your brain. Every knock on the door made you flinch. Every stranger on the road might recognize you. You stopped dreaming because dreaming was dangerous. You couldn't love. You couldn't relax. You couldn't laugh too loud. You lived like a ghost pretending to be a man. The truth was, there was no endgame for a medieval assassin. Just a slow, cold fade into obscurity. Always moving, always watching. Until one day you slipped into the dark and no one noticed. And maybe that was the best you could hope for. Your muscles are completely relaxed now. You're breathing deep and steady, your mind quiet and peaceful, as you think about the gift of a future, of being able to imagine tomorrow, next week, next year, of building something that lasts instead of constantly running. The assassins had no future, just an endless present of fear and flight. No ability to plan or dream or hope. Just survival, day after day, until it ended. You have what they never did. The ability to rest, to trust, to plan, to dream, to build something lasting, to imagine yourself old and safe and surrounded by people who know you and love you. That's not just nice. That's everything. That's the whole point of civilization, of progress, of humanity slowly learning to be less brutal, so that people can have futures, can rest, can trust, can build, instead of constantly destroying and fleeing. Tonight, as you drift into deep, peaceful sleep, you carry with you the gift they never received, the gift of tomorrow, of next week, of a life that extends beyond the next threat, beyond the next escape, beyond the next identity. You can be yourself, can stay, can rest, can dream, and wake up still you, still here, still building your life instead of running from it. The medieval assassins would have called that paradise. They would have traded every coin, every skill, every dark victory for just one night of peaceful sleep, one morning of waking up safe, one day of being themselves without fear. And you have that every single night. So rest now, deeply, peacefully, completely, knowing that you're safe, that tomorrow will come, that you don't have to run or hide or become someone else. You can just be, just rest, just sleep. The assassins never knew this peace, but you do, and it's extraordinary. It's everything. It's the whole reason we fought our way out of that dark medieval world, so people could rest, could trust, could sleep without fear, without running, without ending. Just rest, deep, peaceful, grateful rest. Think about waking up tomorrow as yourself, in your own bed, in your own home, with your own name and your own life intact. That simple act would have been impossible for the assassin. They woke up. If they woke up as someone else, somewhere else, always running, always hiding, always becoming someone new. You don't have to do that. Don't have to flee. Don't have to hide. Don't have to constantly reinvent yourself just to survive. You can wake up tomorrow as yourself. And that's everything. Settling into the deepest peace now, into the profound gift of continuity, of waking up as yourself, of having a life that persists, that builds, that becomes something meaningful over time. The assassins never knew that gift, never felt that peace, never experienced the simple, extraordinary miracle of being yourself. Tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that, building a life instead of constantly abandoning it. So tonight, in their honor, in their memory, rest deeply in the peace they never knew, the safety they never felt, the future they never had. Good night. Sleep well. You've earned this peace, this safety, this beautiful, ordinary miracle of waking up tomorrow as yourself, in your own life, building your own future. The medieval assassins would have called that the greatest treasure. And you have it every single night. Sweet dreams.